Hey everyone, quick example. I do this every once in a while, like a tutorial on spreads. I know we have a lot of new people. So, what's a spread? In options terms, is when I buy something, I can sell something against it. And it basically creates a spread of sorts. I'm going to use a debit call spread. It's also called a bull call spread. It's a vertical spread because it goes up and down. And then I'm going to talk about two variations of it and one real life example using AMD. This is AMD chart, but it really doesn't matter. So let's say I bought the June 8250 call. That's the real life example. I actually did. I paid 350 for it, and it was a while back. I shared it at the time. So I could have done that and then sold a call above it. So if I bought this one, I could have sold this one and reduced my entry cost by $1 or $2, whatever it was. So now I would be in a vertical call spread. Cost less, but I'm limited. So if the price goes to a million, I can only make the difference, which is nice hefty profit, but I'm limited. So it could go to a million, all this is wasted. But in return, I had a lower price and better conviction on bad days. So that's one version. That's a vertical call spread, up down, vertical call spread. The maximum I could lose is the money I spend up front. In this case, if I had bought it naked, the maximum I could lose is $3.50. In a spread, it's much less. All right, so what is the variation? I'll show you variation number 1, which is not my favorite, and then I'll go to variation number 2, which is my favorite and which is what I did. And the real life example will illustrate why one is worse than the other. So the first variation of the vertical spread, we'll put a V here for vertical, is selling, instead of selling this one in the same time frame, I still buy this one, but I sell one that expired last week and at the same level. So now this is called a calendar spread because I'm shifting time. Instead of June, I buy June. Instead of selling June, I'm selling last week, 4/9, April 9th. So at the same level, 8250. For this, I collect some money. And if price is below that level, then that money is mine. Otherwise, I'm limiting my profits. And therein lies the problem. That would have been a problem last week because the stock spiked and closed above it. So that would have been a problem. It's like I saw it coming, but not really. That's just how I operate. I always like to be safer than not. So instead of doing a calendar, so first we have a vertical, then we have a calendar. The second variation, third version, is a diagonal. What I did is I sold the 8350 call instead of the 8250 call. So I changed times, like this one, the calendar, and levels. Therefore, now it's called a diagonal because it literally is a diagonal from the one I owned to the one I sold. So what did that achieve? It gave me an extra $1 to mess around with. I collected less, so I was less greedy. So instead of collecting 70 cents or whatever that paid at the time, I collected 50 cents. But I knew that I had $1 of buffer, and guess what? It went up to 83.50 and then died. So that little move extra, being a diagonal, made all the difference. But the point of this is to illustrate how these work. First, vertical. Limited all the time. For as long as I opened it, the limit goes on. These two, the limit expires. In this case, the gamble would have not paid. In this case, it worked out. So they have pluses and minuses. The plus on this one, it's simple. I don't have to worry about much. I spend X, I make Y if I'm right. With this one, if I nail it, then like if the stock meanders and then spikes after they expire, perfect. So what next? I'll tell you what next. Step 2. So I did this and I won. I collected 50 cents. I netted 40 because I bought it back in the morning for 10 cents. I didn't want to be greedy. And so now my cost basis is no longer 350. It's actually 3.1. Well, when I closed it, I reopened it for this coming week, this Friday, at 86. So now I'm in another diagonal because this one expired. I bought it back, and I have room until 86. I didn't do anything with this one. I collected another 50 cents for that one. And guess what? This is down to 6 cents. I should have bought it today back to close it, but I just ran out of time. So most likely tomorrow I will buy it back to close it for 6 cents. It's ridiculous to leave risk open for 6 cents. So in the end, what happened? I paid $3.50 a while back. I collected 50 cents for this one that I bought back for 10, so I netted 40 cents, and that died in my favor. I renewed the risk for this week, and now I can buy it back for another, let's call it 10 cents, so 80 more cents. I'm rounding. It's a little better than that. So now my cost is almost $1 cheaper. In fact, it's a lot more than $1 because this is the third time I do it. There's one I didn't mention it before. So that's how using spreads can lower the entry cost. Again, vertical spread, simple. You do it at the beginning, you don't worry about it, you're limited for forever. With these two, the advantage is they're trickier, but the advantage is that if you time it right and the spike doesn't happen until they expire, you're unlimited. You're long here and you're unlimited. If it goes to here, win, 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 win. There's no cap. But sometimes it doesn't work out, like in this case. Somebody who did this, it didn't work out. I chose the right level. So again, the recap, the point is vertical spread, same time frame. Calendar spread, same level, I switch time. Diagonal spread, I switch time and I switch level. It's important to note that I own the closest one. So I sell stuff either at or higher. Otherwise, I create a credit spread of sort, like a credit put spread, a credit call spread, which I don't want in this case. I have done before, but that's trickier. So let this be a real life example. In fact, let me see if I can bring in a picture. All right, this is the actual position. 86 for 3 days, April 21. That's this coming Friday. 86, that's my position that I sold. That's why it's red. It's now 6.5 pennies. I collected almost 50 cents for it. And that's the one that I own out to 60 days. 66 days still left on the clock. And it's now for 422. But my cost basis is not 350. It's a lot lower. So I can stay in it and repeat the process for as long as I want. Very important point is I don't do this. I don't sell if there's an earnings report coming. Like I would not sell another one into the week that would include May 4th or whenever the earnings are coming. That's just ridiculous because the event on earnings are wild and I have no edge. I don't know how people are going to react to the earnings. I'm comfortable with knowing that the company will deliver great results, but I don't know what the expectations are. Neither do you, by the way. So admittedly, everybody should say, you know what, it's a crapshoot around the earnings, so why would I want to sell risk into the earnings when I have no clue what's going to happen? I either close the whole position or just ride it out with the long calls or trim the calls and leave some runners. So that's the lesson today is spreads. I only used calls, but it works out same way on the puts, and I'll do another video on some other time so we don't take more than 8 minutes this time. It's not too bad. This is my second effort at it to make it shorter. Okay, so if I don't understand the trade, I should take it on paper first. And this concept of selling a call against the call I own, you may have heard of it, but in a different version called synthetic dividends, sometimes they're calling, or covered call sales, like if I own shares in the stock. This is exactly the same concept. If I own shares, I'm selling calls against the shares I own. Well, if I own calls, I own the right to buy the shares. Therefore, they will let me sell calls against them because it's the same thing. My price is locked. Therefore, my broker is comfortable that if the price goes to $1 million, this guy, me, has the right to buy the shares and sell them at the same place or close to each other. Then they're comfortable with that. So it's the same concept, different names.